The drill was winding through a cedar plank when my phone vibrated on the workbench. I was mid-sentence in my head, going over whether the damn beam needed a double joist bracket or not, when I wiped the sawdust off my hands and glanced at the screen. Instagram. She never tagged me in anything anymore, so it must have been the algorithm feeding me what it thought I'd want to see. It nailed it for once. There she was, my wife, in a field I didn't recognize. Looked like some budget pumpkin patch with picnic tables and hay bales. She was leaning into a man, arms looped around his neck like it was their anniversary. His name was Brian. I knew that because I'd heard it. A lot. Brian says we should try that Italian place. Brian's kid is in STEM camp too. Brian's the only reason I haven't quit that place. That Brian. Behind them, our two kids. One sitting on a wooden barrel, trying to balance a donut on his knee, and the other, hand shielding her eyes from the sun. Unaware. Just background props in a stranger's highlight reel. Caption, my real partner. Family day done right. I didn't feel the jolt of betrayal. Not at first. It was more surgical than that. Cold. Like a wire snapping under tension. Clean and quiet. I stared at it for a full minute. Not a twitch in my hands. Just watched as the hearts and likes stacked beneath it. One of her co-workers dropped a laughing emoji. Another wrote, cutest work fam. A knot started to form in my jaw. And then, without drama, without a second thought, I typed a single comment. Congrats. No punctuation. No exclamation point. Just that. Then I closed the app, turned off the screen, and went back to the joist I was measuring. My pencil was still behind my ear. The deck still needed finishing, but my hands were steadier than they'd been all morning. Later, I'd realize what that moment was. Not shock. Not devastation. Permission. She handed me the scalpel. All I had to do was decide where to cut. Inside, the kids were watching a movie. One of those Pixar things with talking fish or cooking rats. I couldn't tell anymore. She wasn't back yet. Supposedly visiting her aunt in Fairfield. Left Saturday morning with an overnight bag and a fake yawn. Said she needed a break from the usual chaos. The usual chaos being our family, I guess. I went into the house through the garage. Everything looked normal. Still smelled like laundry and air freshener and a bit of vinegar from the window cleaner I'd used yesterday. Domestic. Undisturbed. On the fridge, a crayon drawing from our youngest. Mommy, Daddy, me, Max, and the dog. 5 stick figures under a sun with spiky rays. I stared at the fifth one. No face. The others had smiles. I took it down, folded it once, and slipped it into the junk drawer under the takeout menus. Upstairs, her closet door was slightly ajar. The overnight bag wasn't on the floor. Neither were her tennis shoes. I noticed things now. Too sharply. Too clearly. A scarf that wasn't hers. Cologne on her jacket that definitely wasn't mine. In the office, I opened the browser on the desktop and typed in the law firm I'd bookmarked months ago. I'd never had a reason to click until now. Funny how fast the line between paranoid and prepared disappears when your wife posts a family portrait with someone else. I booked a consult. Same day. Discrete flag checked. Uploaded a screenshot of the selfie with the caption. It felt like submitting evidence to a quiet, inevitable trial. Then I shut the lid, walked back downstairs, and made grilled cheese sandwiches for the kids. Crust cut off. Pickles on the side. Just like she used to do. Just like I do now. When the garage door opened hours later, I was on the couch, reading. Kids in bed. TV muted. She walked in humming, smelling like wine and someone else's cologne, wearing a sweater I hadn't seen in our house before. Oh hey, she chirped, hanging her keys. You wouldn't believe the traffic. I smiled. A small, quiet smile. Yeah, I said. Bet it was packed. She poured herself a glass of wine like she'd just come home from yoga, not a 48-hour aunt visit that featured her co-worker draped around her shoulders like a prom date. The clink of the bottle against the rim was louder than usual, or maybe my ears were just sharper now. She moved around the kitchen humming something off-key, some Spotify indie nonsense she always said calmed her nervous system. I was chopping onions. Calm. Focused. Every slice uniform. You're quiet, she finally said, opening the fridge for some overpriced goat cheese we both knew the kids wouldn't touch. I shrugged. Tired. Long weekend. She leaned against the counter, swirling the wine like she'd practiced it in a mirror. You should have come with us. The kids had a blast. With us. Not with me. Not with their mother. Not even with Brian and his family. Just us. Like I'd been photoshopped out of the picture. Yeah. I asked, keeping my voice flat. She smiled. Brian's honestly amazing with them. Like a total natural. I couldn't believe it. Max asked him if he could teach him how to throw a spiral. I slid the chopped onions into the skillet, and turned on the burner. She waited for a reaction. Got none. So she kept going. I mean, it's funny, right? Brian and I always joke we're like a little fake family on the road. You know, conferences, events, it's like our thing. There it was. Our thing. I stirred the onions. They looked happy, I said finally. She laughed, but it cracked halfway through. Oh, come on, don't be weird. It's harmless. You know how Brian is. And he loves kids. His own, mine, yours, all of them. I looked over, met her eyes for a split second too long. Sure, harmless. She blinked, then smiled again, forcefully this time. Anyway, I'm starving. Let's eat. At the table, she talked like nothing had happened. Work drama. Someone got fired for stealing an office chair. Her Pilates instructor was pregnant again. The kids needed new jackets. I nodded where appropriate, offered a few well-placed hums and yes. Let her fill the air. The kids, thankfully, were in bed. She didn't even ask how their weekend was. Didn't ask if Max had that nightmare again, or if Ellie remembered her spelling words. Just talked about herself. And Brian. After dinner, she left her plate in the sink. I'll get it tomorrow, she muttered. Then kissed me on the cheek, an old habit more than affection, and floated upstairs. I sat at the table for a minute longer, watching the steam curl off her untouched tea, then stood, cleared the plates, and loaded the dishwasher. I made sure everything was quiet before I slipped into the office. Closed the door, opened the laptop. The email was already drafted. Subject, follow-up, family law consultation. I attached the original screenshot from Instagram. No edits. Full caption visible. The kids' faces blurred in the thumbnail preview, but anyone looking close enough could tell who they were. I added one line to the message. Please include this in the asset protection folder. Children's images used without parental consent. Then hit send. There was a knock at the door. Her voice through it. Hey, you coming up? Yeah, I called back. Just closing out a couple things. Don't work too late, she chirped, then patted down the hallway. I stared at the screen for another moment. The email was gone. In flight. Off to the attorney who didn't know me yet, but would soon know everything. On the desk was a post-it with my to-do list, deck repairs, tree trimming, scheduled dentist for Max. I flipped it over and wrote a new item. Insurance. Digital. Copy weekly. Then tucked it under the keyboard. She thought we were still in the same script. Still playing house. Still trusting each other enough to believe in lazy jokes and wine-fueled denial. But I wasn't waiting for the truth anymore. I wasn't asking questions. I was archiving the answers. The office was beige. That corporate beige, the color of plausible deniability. The kind of place where nothing was ever wrong. Just under internal review. Where smiles were plastic and everyone had Slack channels that doubled as evidence someday. At 8:43 a.m. sharp, an email arrived in the inbox of Morgan S., Senior HR Compliance Officer at Keene and Langley Solutions. Subject, potential breach of family policy and misuse of family image. Sender, anonymous at protonmail.com. Attachment, img_5822.jpg. Morgan opened it, blinked once, zoomed in. There they were. Candace, her husband Brian, the real Brian, and 2 kids. Not Brian's. Not Candace's, technically, but definitely not anonymous stock children. Their faces were in half focus, lit by golden hour sun, with a pumpkin patch aesthetic that might have made it into a company brochure, if it weren't for the caption. My real partner. Family day done right. Morgan read it again. Then again. The timestamp, Sunday. Less than 24 hours ago. Candace had tagged the location, Autumn Ridge Farm, and Brian had commented a heart emoji. So had a couple of employees from the events team. Morgan didn't waste time. She flagged the image, attached it to a compliance case, and added tags. Potential ethics violation, improper use of company family initiative, conflict of interest, personal/public boundaries. By 10:30 a.m., the head of HR, legal affairs, and external PR had copies. The group chat lit up quietly, just names with periods. Seen. Understood. Need background. The problem wasn't the affair. That was just gossip fuel. The problem was Candace's position, Associate Director of Outreach. The face of the company's family's first campaign. The one who gave talks at schools about professional boundaries in the digital age. Who'd signed off on last quarter's family values slideshow. There had already been an internal note months ago about her closeness with Brian. Something about overly friendly travel reports and unusual lodging overlaps. It got brushed aside. They were both high performers. Translation, too useful to discipline. But now this? This wasn't just a bad look. It was shareable. By lunchtime, people were whispering. Candace arrived at 11:58 a.m., clutching an oat milk latte and smiling like she'd cracked the code to work-life balance. She breezed past reception, complimented someone's blazer, and joked with Brian near the copy room. But she noticed it. That subtle shift. How eyes didn't linger. How two people suddenly stopped talking when she passed. How Jenna from accounting answered her "Hey, good weekend?" with a brittle and a fast walk away. Brian acted normal. Too normal. Gave her a thumbs up when he spotted her in the break room and muttered, "Big week," before heading off to a team huddle. At 1:12 p.m., her manager was called upstairs. No explanation. Just a clipped message. Director Quinn needs 5 minutes. At 2:03 p.m., she got the calendar invite. Subject, policy debrief. Attendees, HR, compliance, legal liaison. Location, 8th floor conference, A, glass room. She tilted her head, blinked at it. Weird, she muttered. At 2:07 p.m., she texted Brian. You get this MTG too? No response. At 2:22 p.m., Brian walked past her desk without looking. By 3:15, 3 more employees had screenshotted the post. One forwarded it to a friend in PR with a single line. We got a new Amanda from marketing situation on our hands. At 4 p.m., HR quietly began requesting flight records from the last conference. Cross-checking hotel bookings. Going through tagged posts from the company's official Family Inclusion Events album from 2 quarters ago. The captions that once seemed wholesome now read differently. Thanks to Brian and Candace for leading the Family Day event at Autumn Fest. Big thanks to our outreach duo. Hashtag WorkFamily Red Heart. Candace didn't know it yet, but her caption wasn't just a slip-up. It was evidence. By 4:46 p.m., a new folder appeared in the compliance directory. Candace, Image 5822 Review. Subfolders. HR Timeline. Social Media Archive. Policy Violation Draft. Communications with External, if escalated. Candace was still at her desk, filing reports. Still smiling. Still floating on the belief that what she posted was just cute and relatable. She had no idea she'd just set the first domino in motion. And HR? They weren't angry. They were patient. The message came in at 7:39 p.m. sharp. Short. Calculated. Melissa Harper. Saw the post. This isn't the first time, but bringing our kids into it. Call me. I didn't recognize the number at first. Just stared at the name for a beat too long. Melissa Harper, until it clicked. Brian's wife. PDA mom. Volunteer queen. The woman who used to wave at us across the soccer field while we all pretended our lives were normal and vaguely admirable. I stared at the screen, then at the framed photo above my desk, my daughter on my shoulders, smiling like the world was stable and kind. I called. She picked up on the second ring. No hello. You saw it, she said, voice crisp. Controlled. I did. She exhaled hard, not quite a sigh. More like someone closing the lid on something toxic. You knew already, didn't you? I had suspicions, I said. The photo made it clear. Yeah. Brian swore up and down it was all platonic. Emotional support or some crap. He called it professional intimacy. Like he was a surgeon and she was the scalpel. I didn't laugh. Neither did she. I'm not shocked, she added. But the kids? Mine, yours? That's new. She posted it publicly. I said. Caption and everything. Tagged the damn farm, she muttered. I checked. That's the same one we went to last year. With me. With our kids. Silence. Then she said, meet me tomorrow. Noon. I want to compare notes. The next day, we met at a bakery halfway between our houses. The kind with forced charm, exposed brick, hanging plants, overpriced scones no one finishes. We sat across from each other in a booth that smelled like burnt espresso. Melissa looked composed, tight ponytail, light makeup, a jacket folded neatly on the seat beside her. But her eyes were bloodshot, and her knuckles were white on the coffee cup. She pulled out her phone. Let's begin. What followed was less a conversation and more a coroner's report. She showed me texts, over 60 of them. Some short, some nauseatingly long, sent late at night. Photos of hotel keycards. Inside jokes I recognized from things Candace said at dinner. One message was a selfie from a hotel bathroom. Brian in the mirror. Candace's reflection behind him. Not touching, but close. Staged like a joke, but staged. Then came travel dates. Conferences. Work trips. Team building weekends. We started matching them to receipts. It was too neat. Here, Melissa said, flipping to a spreadsheet she'd started in Google Sheets. Because of course she had. Chicago. They told us it was a one-day seminar. Turns out they stayed 3 nights. Same hotel. Booked through the company under separate names. But if you call the front desk, same room. I added my piece. Notes I'd quietly kept. Times Candace missed her flight. Nights she was too tired to FaceTime. I showed Melissa the grocery store receipts. One had 2 bottles of red wine, allergy pills, and men's shaving cream. Candace is allergic to red wine. I'm not allergic to anything. We don't buy shaving cream anymore. I use an electric razor. Melissa's lips tightened as she looked through it. She always had an excuse, she said. Said I was insecure. That she was mentoring him. That I didn't understand the demands of her job. Same. She ever say you were too emotionally unavailable? I huffed. She called me stable to a fault. Said Brian made her feel seen. Like he's a damn spirit guide. She laughed once, sharp. She told me you were kind of checked out. Too domestic, I think was the phrase. We sat in silence after that. Mutual humiliation soaked in espresso and stale lemon scones. Finally, I said, what do you want to do? She met my eyes. Burn it down. But cleanly. Quietly. The way they never imagined we could. Agreed. We planned it like a military op. She'd forward me everything. Texts, call logs, photos. I'd send her my lawyer's contact. We'd coordinate timelines. Tag the same HR officers. Trigger simultaneous reviews. No theatrics. No screaming matches. Just precision. I want custody, Melissa said. I want them to live with consequences. Not chaos. Not guilt. Just results. Same here, I said. They made this mess. They just don't know we're already holding the broom. We didn't hug when we left. No warmth. No camaraderie. Just clarity. Let them romanticize chaos. We'd weaponize order. The pen felt heavier than it should have. It wasn't the weight, really, it was the permanence. Thick blue ink gliding across line after line. Initials at the bottom right corners, full signatures at the foot of each page. My attorney, Janet Kroll, sharp as a guillotine in a navy blazer, sat across from me with a legal pad and a silence that said, "This is the cleanest way." "You understand what this one does?" she said, tapping the signature line I was about to reach. "Once it's filed, the trust owns the property. Not you. Not her. She'll have no claim. None. Unless you explicitly invite her in." I nodded and signed. The house was no longer ours. It was a legal shell, with me inside it and her outside the door. A trust with my kids as sole beneficiaries and me as trustee. Bulletproof. College fund, she asked, flipping to the next section. Done, I said. Pulled everything this morning. Janet smiled. Not warm. Satisfied. I'd moved quickly. Too quickly, if I were trying to hurt her. But this wasn't about hurt. This was about removal. Detachment. Precision. The same way you pull out a rotten tooth before it poisons the blood. That morning, I had walked into the credit union and closed the joint college fund. Every dollar we'd scraped together over the years, every tax-sheltered cent. She always wanted it under both our names for unity. I transferred it into a new 529 plan under my name only, with the kids listed directly. No middleman. No ambiguity. The teller looked confused. Planning for changes, I said. He didn't ask more. I handed Janet the final bank statement showing the withdrawal and new account. Good, she said, slotting it into the binder. Now the car. Title flipped, I nodded. New insurance, new registration, new keys. She scribbled something down. What about the accounts? Split last week. New checking. Old one set to auto-freeze if 2 withdrawals hit in the same hour. Smart, she said. You're not angry. I am, I said. I'm just done leading with it. She paused, then turned the page slowly to the final form, the petition draft. Do you want to include the photograph? She asked, flipping the folder open to the Instagram post. Printed in color. Caption in bold. My real partner. Family day done right. My kids' faces pixelated, but still recognizable. Still mine. Yes, I said, with a note. Photographic evidence attached. She clicked her pen and wrote it in the margin, just under grounds. Irreconcilable differences. Nothing dramatic. Nothing tabloid-worthy. Just a clean acknowledgement of rupture. I flipped through the full petition again. The lines were cold. Legalese. But I could feel the silence between them, like a ghost pacing in drywall. Property divided. Custody pending. Assets frozen. Her name appeared only twice. Mine appeared 6 times. The kids were named 10 times. It felt right. Janet stood. We'll file this Wednesday. I'll also notify HR through back channels, quietly. We don't want the internal investigation crossing signals with the legal timeline. I stood too. Thank you, I said. You handled this like someone who'd been preparing. I looked out the frosted window at the skyline beyond. Buildings like dominoes, ready to fall the second you nudged them right. I said. She just picked the deadline. She handed me the folder, now thick with action. As I left her office, I passed by another man in the waiting area, red-eyed, jittery. He held a plastic bag with receipts and a stack of photos. His hands shook. He looked like someone who had just discovered. I was past that. Out in the parking lot, I sat in the car for a moment and stared at the dashboard. The timestamp blinked, 4:04 p.m. I told Candace I had a hardware store run. And I did. I still needed to pick up deck screws and mulch. Life didn't pause just because someone lit a match inside it. I reached into the glove box and added the newly signed trust documents to the insurance folder. A USB drive sat underneath. Labeled, backed up, fireproof. Before pulling out, I texted Melissa 2 words. Filed. Ready. 3 dots appeared. Then, absolutely. We were no longer married people. We were strategists, and the trap was nearly closed. She dressed like it was her coronation. Hair done. Blazer crisp. That necklace she wore when she wanted to radiate just enough authority to be respected, but not enough to intimidate. She even skipped her usual platform heels for something executive chic, because today was the day, the one she'd been hinting about for months. At 9:06 a.m., her calendar pinged. Scheduled review, glass conference, 8th floor. She smiled. That's the good room. The glass one. The one they used for promotions, interviews with external partners, high stakes, but high reward stuff. She took it as confirmation. She left early, stopped for a matcha latte, smiled at herself in the car's vanity mirror. Finally, she whispered. Upstairs, people smiled at her, but not like before. There was something brittle about their faces. Polite, sure, but thin. She didn't notice. Not really. She was too busy straightening her blazer and checking her reflection in the chrome elevator wall. When the doors opened on the 8th floor, she walked in like a woman already chosen, already celebrated, already halfway to a new salary bracket, until she saw who was in the room. HR sat at the far end, Morgan, stone-faced. Beside her was Ron from compliance, fingers laced like a man prepping for a sermon. Janet from legal was there too, laptop open, unreadable. And across from them, me, her husband. And next to me, Melissa. Candace paused, blinking. Oh, she said. I thought. Morgan didn't let her finish. Have a seat, Candace. The door clicked shut behind her. That glass room suddenly felt like a fishbowl. Everyone outside could see in, but no one could hear a thing. She sat slowly, trying to rearrange her face. Somewhere between casual confusion and reluctant curiosity, Morgan slid a piece of paper across the table. 1 page. Centered. Printed in full color. My real partner. Family Day done right. Candace stared at it. She didn't touch it. Just stared. Like maybe if she held still long enough, the image would disappear. Morgan spoke calmly. This image was brought to our attention yesterday morning. It includes another employee, 2 minors, and appears to be taken during a company-sponsored event. Candace glanced at me, lips parting like she was about to start the playbook. The one with the flirty deflection, the feigned surprise, the it's just a joke, baby routine. But Melissa was already placing her phone on the table. Face up, screen lit. Brian's texts. Dozens. All time-stamped. The kinds of texts that stripped the varnish off every excuse Candace ever rehearsed. HR continued, unfazed. This isn't about private conduct. This is about public misuse of corporate programming, potential breaches of the code of ethics, and reputational risk to both internal operations and external partnerships. Ron leaned forward. You're in a leadership role, Candace. This is substantial. She swallowed. This is being blown out of proportion. I mean, look, we're a close team. Everyone knows that. Brian and I have been friends for years. The kids? They love him. We were just. My real partner. Janet from legal cut in, voice cool. You're aware that we have internal definitions for familial representation when it involves company branding, yes? Candace opened her mouth, closed it. She turned toward me, her expression brittle, desperate for some kind of anchor. I offered nothing. Melissa sat still, hands folded, eyes locked on her. A quiet storm in a pressed blouse. I think, Morgan said, it would be best for us to continue this with HR counsel present. For now, we'd like you to wait outside. Candace stood, but not immediately. She was still computing, still looking for the scene partner who would save the act, still believing there was an exit. But this wasn't theater anymore. She walked out with her shoulders too high, like she didn't want to admit gravity. When the door shut, Melissa leaned back and exhaled for the first time. I stayed silent. Morgan turned to me. Anything you'd like us to add to the report? I shook my head. No, I said. That was her caption. I think it speaks for itself. She stood just outside the conference room door for 12 full seconds before pushing it open again. A knock would have made it dignified. But Candace didn't knock. She re-entered like someone who thought the show was still running. Like a sitcom star barging back into the scene with one more quip. "Okay, look," she began, her voice too bright, too fast. "I get it. This looks bad. But come on. You really think this is worth dragging in legal? It was just a weekend. A photo." She reached across the table and plucked the printed image off the surface like it was a misfiled memo, something she could fold and stuff into her purse. Melissa said nothing. She didn't even glance at her. Just tapped her phone screen again, already unlocked, and slid it back into view. Another text. Another timestamp. Another nail. Candace didn't look at it. "I mean, Brian and I joke all the time. That's our thing. The fake spouse bit. Everyone knows we're tight. It's like an office running gag. HR even laughed about it once at the retreat. Remember that, Morgan?" Morgan didn't blink. Ron from compliance leaned forward, fingers laced. "Candace, this isn't about gags. This is about credibility, optics, and the use of company resources, time, money, events, for what now appears to be a personal relationship masquerading as professional partnership." Candace tried to laugh. It came out dry and strangled. "Okay, but this is... I mean, are we really going nuclear over Instagram? You can't tell me no one else has posted worse." No one answered. She turned to me. "Honey," she started, voice lowering into a soft, calculated tone. "Tell them. You know this isn't some." I didn't move. I didn't speak. I watched her use that tone I'd heard 100 times in other rooms. When bills were late, when she was caught in a lie, when she needed someone to hold the rope while she climbed out of another mess. But there was no rope now. Just floor. Melissa's gaze didn't waver. Calm. Sharp. Like a librarian about to shush someone permanently. Candace's eyes darted between us. "You're both just what? Tag-teaming me now? Is that what this is?" she said, half laughing, voice cracking in the edges. "A little revenge party? How long have you two been planning this, huh?" "Candace," Morgan said, voice still impossibly neutral. "This impacts more than just you. Two families. Minors. Our public image. This isn't a personal ambush. This is a corporate integrity issue." Candace froze mid-breath. "You keep saying reputation," she said finally, something trembling now behind her eyes. "But you didn't mind when I was the face of the family's first campaign. When I was working late, traveling, making you all look progressive and inclusive." Ron nodded slightly. "Which is precisely why this is serious. Your face was attached to multiple sponsored events, including ones where both your family and Brian's were present. That creates implications we cannot untangle easily. And the caption didn't help," Morgan added. "My real partner. That's not just personal. It's declarative." "I was being funny," Candace said, now almost whispering. "It's a joke." Melissa finally spoke. "You made my kids part of your joke." Candace turned to her like she'd forgotten she was there. "Melissa, come on. They love Brian. They're always happy to see him. And you? What? You've never had a flirtatious friendship." Melissa's voice was flat. "Not with someone who sends me Google Calendar invites for motel meetups and lists them as budget meetings." Candace's lip twitched. Janet from legal, silent until now, closed her laptop softly. Morgan exhaled. "Candace, please wait outside." There was nothing else to say. Candace stood but didn't move for a second. Just stared at the table, at the piece of paper she was now holding with creased fingers. Her hands were shaking. She walked toward the door slowly, like gravity had doubled. Right before stepping out, she looked at me. Her face wasn't angry, not pleading, just hollow. But I didn't flinch. I didn't nod. I didn't follow. The door closed behind her like the final scene of a play that didn't get a standing ovation. Inside the room, no one spoke. Melissa reached for her phone, flipped it face down. I just sat there, watching the silence settle like dust. She slammed the front door like someone still pretending to have control. Bags hit the tile, keys clattered. Shoes kicked off, jacket halfway onto the back of a chair before sliding to the floor. She didn't even notice the silence at first, still caught in the echo of the glass-walled room. The word suspended rang in her head like it had been screamed through a megaphone, though it was said quietly, professionally, with no malice, just finality. Her laptop was in her tote, unopened. Her company badge, still dangling from her belt loop, felt radioactive, as if everyone she passed could see the stain now, like her guilt had become a brand. She reached for her phone, thumb tapping out a message to Brian with muscle memory. "Call me. They pulled me from the campaign." "What did you say?" No read receipt. Just a blank profile icon. The typing bubble didn't appear. She moved through the living room like a woman trying to outrun something she hadn't quite named yet. Then she saw the folder. Plain. Manila. Placed deliberately in the center of the kitchen table, where she used to drop grocery lists and meal plans. Where her daughter once spilled glitter glue that never quite came off, no matter how many times she scrubbed. Her hand hovered before touching it. Something in her gut said don't. She opened it anyway. First page, separation agreement, preliminary terms. Second page, notice of bank account termination, joint access revoked. Third, custodial allocation schedule proposal, pending mediation. Fourth, a list of itemized assets, neatly labeled. Mortgage, trust-owned. Vehicle, individually retitled. College fund, new plan hashtag XXX9132. Insurance policies, sole beneficiary updated. And then a single note. Printed, not handwritten. Your decisions involve the children. Mine protect them. She sank into the chair. Slowly, like her body had to process gravity in increments. She flipped through the folder again, as if looking at the same words from a different angle would change what they said. There was no rage in the documents. No threats. No vitriol. Just paperwork. Just decisions. Already made. The joint account was closed. She tried logging into the mobile app and got an error. Tried again. Error. Called the number on the back of her debit card. Was told there was a security hold placed that morning, pending legal separation proceedings. The agent was polite. Apologetic. Efficient. She checked her email. 6 unread messages from HR. 4 from legal. 1 from someone in PR with a subject line. Need clarification re. Family values branding and personal social posts. She didn't open it. The hallway was dark. The kids' rooms were empty. The closet half cleared. His shoes gone. Drawers neatly emptied. No mess, no drama. His toothbrush no longer in the holder. The charger for his watch missing. The charger for her phone still plugged in. She called him. Voicemail. Called again. Straight to voicemail. The third time, she left a message. Okay, this is ridiculous, she said, trying to laugh. I know you're mad. I get it. But you didn't have to do this without talking to me first. We're supposed to be a team, remember? She hung up before her voice cracked. Then called again. No answer. Sat down at the kitchen table, folder in front of her, and looked around the room. The banana peel from the kids' breakfast still in the trash. A small cup of uneaten applesauce on the counter. The microwave blinking 12 o'clock, like time had stopped just for her. She reached for her phone. Opened Instagram. The post was still there. Her smiling with Brian. The kids behind them. My real partner. Family day done right. One new comment. You're disgusting. No profile picture. No name. Just the sentence. She locked her phone and dropped it on the table. Then, finally, she put her head down in her arms and realized she was the only one who didn't see this coming. The courthouse didn't look like a place where lives ended. It looked like a DMV. Pale walls. Plastic chairs. People quietly flipping through manila folders full of shame and strategy. Candace sat with her lawyer, a man she'd picked for his online reviews and expensive tie. His name was Stephen Hollins, and he had the vibe of a man who told everyone he used to play squash, but never actually did. He kept adjusting his cufflinks and muttering legalese to her in a low, anxious tone. We'll argue lack of intent. Could push for shared custody. Public image damage isn't quantifiable in this phase. Blah, blah, blah. She wasn't listening. She was watching the man across the room. Me. I didn't smile. I didn't make eye contact. I sat still, binder on the table in front of me. The one Hollins kept glancing at like it was ticking. Because it was. The judge walked in. Female, maybe mid-50s, the kind of composure that made you believe she'd handled uglier things than a LinkedIn affair with bad optics. She looked at both sides, adjusted her glasses, and asked the usual questions in a voice so professional it felt like a scalpel. Preliminary hearing. Mr. and Mrs. Dalton. Filing party present. Yes, Your Honor, my lawyer said. And respondent. Hollins cleared his throat. Present, Your Honor. Representing Ms. Dalton. The judge nodded and gestured toward the binder in front of us. Mr. Rowe, proceed. Rowe, my attorney, opened the binder like a magician setting up the final trick. Except there were no doves. No illusion. First, financial records. Carefully documented transfers, asset isolation, trust establishment, all done before the filing. No scrambling. No mess. Then, HR documentation. A copy of the internal compliance notice from Candace's employer. Confidential, but admissible. It included the caption, the texts, the ethics breach summary. Rowe let each page sit just long enough before flipping to the next. Slow. Methodical. cruel in its professionalism. Hollins tried to speak once, murmured something about overreach and ambiguous language, but the judge cut him off. Mr. Hollins, does your client dispute the authenticity of the attached image and communications? Hollins hesitated. Candace leaned in, whispered something. He swallowed. No, Your Honor. The judge made a small note on her pad. Then let's proceed. On the matter of marital assets, due to the documented actions preceding the filing and evidence of intent to remove said assets from joint status, I am placing a full freeze on all remaining shared financial accounts pending resolution. Candace's face twitched. The judge continued, calm as an accountant. Regarding property, per documentation from the established trust, the residence is no longer considered community property under current conditions. No access to said residence shall be granted to Ms. Dalton until further review. Candace looked like someone just unplugged her spine. Custody of the children, the judge went on, will be addressed in a separate hearing, pending psychological evaluation reports. Temporary arrangement defaults to the filing party's residence, as he currently maintains sole guardianship. Candace's mouth dropped open. I didn't abandon my children, she blurted. Roden, look up. No one said you did. The judge raised an eyebrow. Ms. Dalton, this is not the forum for that discussion. You will have the opportunity to present your case during custody review. Candace tried to recover, sat up straighter, smoothed her skirt, but she was pale now, bone-deep pale. Hollins cleared his throat again. Your Honor, we would ask that this hearing not be taken as indicative of long-term resolution. My client has made significant professional contributions in the nature of these allegations. The judge stopped him with a look. Mr. Hollins, your client was part of a public campaign built on family values. She used company platforms to promote a personal relationship that directly contradicts that image. You're lucky this isn't a defamation case. Hollins sat down. Candace was visibly trembling now. No tears. Not yet. But close. The gavel tapped. This hearing is concluded. Next review in 30 days. All rulings stand pending new evidence. We stood. She didn't. Not at first. She was still staring at the binder, still hoping it was bluff or drama or something she could twist into a performance. But it wasn't. It was proof. Outside, she finally caught up to me. Wait, she said, breath hitching. You can't just do this. Freeze everything. Take the house. The kids. You're making me look like. I'm not making you look like anything, I said, not stopping. You posted it. She reached for my arm. I stepped away. You don't get to disappear, she hissed. You don't get to rewrite the story. I turned to her. You're not the narrator anymore. Then I walked to my car, left her standing on the sidewalk in a $300 blazer in a panic she couldn't negotiate out of. This wasn't a story she could tell her way through. Not this time. The envelope looked ordinary. No lawyer's seal. No threatening font. Just white, sealed, with her name typed neatly in the center. She found it wedged between a coupon book and a grocery ad in the mailbox. At first, she almost tossed it, thought it was another HR memo asking for clarification or an internal wellness notice designed to make termination sound like therapy. But the sender's address, Keene and Langley HQ, made her fingers stop. She opened it with her nail, slicing it unevenly. Paper inside, folded twice. Letterhead sharp. Not even a full page. Just 2 paragraphs. This letter serves as formal notification that your employment with Keene and Langley Solutions has been terminated, effective immediately. The decision follows findings of breach of conduct involving the misuse of company-sponsored family media events and violations of internal image policy. You are no longer authorized to access company platforms, communications, or physical properties. A final itemized statement will be mailed within 7 business days. All materials related to your role must be returned within 5. No closing line. No, thank you for your service. No sympathy. Just finality. Candace sat down on the cold tile floor of the entryway, letter still in hand. Her phone lay face up beside her, screen black. No messages. No calls. No calendar reminders. Just silence. She opened the text thread with him. Still nothing. No new responses to her last 5 messages. The final one. Please, just tell me what I'm supposed to do now. Unread. She typed something else, then deleted it. Started again. Deleted that too. Then opened his Instagram. Still public. Still unblocked. He hadn't posted since last spring. A photo of their kids climbing a wooden fort he built in the backyard, captioned, 2 wild things, 1 sturdy ladder. She clicked back. Searched Melissa's page. Private now. Brian's account. Gone. She leaned back against the wall, head hitting the plaster with a quiet thud. The house was cold. She hadn't turned on the heat. Bills were still technically in both names, but his lawyer had made it clear which ones she'd be responsible for. The fridge had half a bottle of almond milk, a box of old blueberries, and 3 forgotten yogurts. The kitchen calendar hadn't been flipped since September. Somewhere upstairs, her daughter's old iPad pinged with a game notification. She hadn't heard from the kids since the interim custody assignment. Her messages had been seen. That was all. She stood eventually, put the letter on the kitchen counter, stared at it like it might self-destruct, then checked her phone one more time. Still no messages. Across town, I walked the dog. Crisp air, leaves falling like judgment. The leash in one hand, a coffee in the other. I didn't check my phone. Didn't need to. The lawyer had confirmed delivery. Melissa texted, got the call. HR cleaned house. There was nothing left to monitor. Nothing to fix. The dog sniffed around a maple tree, tugged a little toward a path we used to take when Candace still cared about pretending. I let him pull. The wind was clean. Not quiet, exactly, but honest. No white noise. No hidden audio. Just leaves. And silence. And the space between a closed door and what waits on the other side.